Cool. So today on Let's Code, I have a big idea. It's going to be a chat, like a chat application, web app. Um, it's going to be client server, of course, because it's web. The idea is to use first Ruby for the backend, the Sinatra framework for doing the API and stuff, and using Redis as the kind of a database where the messages are going to be synchronized and stored and everything. So I'm going to start from total zero. So I'm going to start from scratch. And let's do it. So I'm going to go to my folder where I put everything. I'm going to call it Let's Code Chat app. And then I'm going to enter that directory. And the usual way I start the Ruby app is I have to check out which Ruby versions I have installed. And I always like to put inside the Ruby version file. So I'm going to create this Ruby version file. It's going to contain the Ruby version. Now, whenever I run Ruby on this folder, it's going to execute always with this version. So next step is I want to do bundle init, because I want a gem file. And the first gem I'm gonna need is Sinatra. The second one I already know it's gonna be Redis. I think it's called Redis, or maybe is it Redis RB? Redis. Yeah, it's called Redis. So Redis Sinatra. I want two very useful debugging gems, which are gonna be pry and pry bybug. I'm gonna already run bundle, so they install already. Yeah, that was quite fast. What else do I need? Well, let's start with very simple web server. I'm gonna make a folder for my views. Yeah, though I think it's gonna be only one view. Anyway. Next step, well, touch server.ruby. So I'm gonna go here and require, and I'm gonna just copy this, paste it here, and yeah, there you go. So I'm now requiring everything I need. And let's just, I always like to do kind of a hello world. And let's see how that goes. So hello world, I can now run this thing. I don't want to be typing Ruby every time, so I'm gonna type in here and Ruby, and I have to make this file executable. So change mod plus X to my server file, and I can execute it. But I need B here in my case is bundle Isaac. I'm gonna type just B, and I probably wanna, well, I don't wanna change that part, doesn't matter. So if I go to localhost, yeah, there we go, there's my hello world. Cool, so that's now very close to a chat application, right? Yeah, very close indeed. Yeah, jokes aside, I want to next step. Let's do some HTML. So I never remember in Sinatra how to make views. Never, ever. I never remember how to do that. I think ERB, Sinatra ERB. I think there's a command where you have to set, or maybe I just have to go with creating index.erb, and then I type in this, and now I can put my hello world here, and I think if I call it like erb index, I think the default folder name is already views, and that's why it's gonna work. So restart this. So yeah, so it worked. There you go. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do the front end right now. I think I'm gonna skip using any fancy JavaScript. I'm just I'm gonna skip using Webpack. I don't want to set up Webpack. I just want to go and write some code. So I have to increase my monitor brightness. Cool. Next step, I want to create a. So the idea is you're gonna pick up a username, and below it is gonna be like a chat application. So I'm gonna call this chat application. Chat application. And I'm gonna have. Well, I always need a div, and I want to put a input field. Input field. It's gonna have an ID, and it's gonna be username. I think that's kind of problematic because now I think the ID field it's going to be transformed in a global variable in JavaScript. So yes, that sucks. So using IDs is not a good idea. I'm going to use just data foobar, data username, data name. So I can do like document.get elements by. No, it's a query selector, and then I can do like data name equals, then I do username, and there you go, I have my input. So I'm ready. I'm gonna copy this because for sure I'm gonna need this, and I think I'm gonna just start writing this other JavaScript right here, and later on I move it to a file. So HTML arrays. Cool, and I have syntax highlighting working. So I'm gonna do let username input equals that. And the idea for the chat is that it's gonna now be a big div here, and each message is gonna be a div inside, and it's gonna be scrolling forever. So I wanna create. I'm gonna call this chat container, and yeah, the layout's gonna kind of suck in the beginning, but what I really want at first is to have it functional. So this is gonna be the chat text container. I did it wrong. Container, and inside this I'm not gonna put anything. So I'm also gonna. So this standard here, I just made it up now, and the idea is that now I have the chat. I'm just gonna call it chat container, and I'm gonna do the same thing as here. So just gonna copy this. Oh. And it's gonna be called chat text chat container. So chat container. This is not a good name for application container. Let me change this. Cool. So I have the chat container, and I hope it's there. I'll actually use semicolon so it gets kind of standardized. Cool. I think I want to put tell at least myself that this is the actual username. So yeah, there you go. And now here the messages, they're gonna be kind of like chat text message wrapper, and then message text. So this is gonna be kind of lame. And then anyway, the message is gonna be like, so I'm gonna put message user name, and I don't know, Jane Doe. Let's keep like this. Hello world, how are you doing? I'm just doing this for the sake of example so I can work with that later. The idea is that these are going to be inserted by the JavaScript below. So here, now I need a name. Mark though. No, they're not related. Mark, just Mark. And it's gonna be hi. I'm doing well. Cool. So yeah, it's kind of ugly. And before I proceed, I want to do some CSS to make this a little bit better than that. So I'm going to start by changing right here and the chat text message username. So I'm going to put the style in the head, and it's going to be for all media. So the chat username, actually the wrapper, this is going to be a flex box. And the text content, so the username is going to be like bold, and the text, let's just put it like that. And I want this whole thing to have a border so I can see it while I work on it. And the flex direction is going to be I never know. I think it's row, because then the items go like they are in a row. Item, oh, I have to, I don't know the names exactly. I think is username, no, wrapper, items, no, align items, yes. It's gonna be a flex start, which I think it's the default one. So align items flex start. I'm just gonna write that just for completeness. And for the username, it's the username is gonna have a padding. Let's put 5 pixels and see how it goes. Yeah, now the text is kind of odd, so let's put also 5 pixels there. And let's change the text to have a font family without serif. Cool, so it's a little bit better than before. I'm going to remove this border, and I want the message wrapper to have, actually I want kind of a border bottom. I want it to be some, I have to specify solid. I have a color picker. I don't know what the color picker, so that's Shift Command E. Oh, there we go. It doesn't work, so I have to go and click, I guess. Cool. So I want to be kind of a gray, so it's going to be a gray line below each message. Yes. Now let's put it to top. Cool. Now I have a little bit of a style, and for this, let's just put this as user name container, and just put some padding there, maybe 15 pixels. Cool. So just is a little bit better. And down here, I also want to put the place where you go and you type in your message. So after this chat text container, I'm gonna put what I'm gonna call the user input. User input is too generic. I don't want that name. It's gonna be the message input container. Message input container. I don't know why I'm using 2. I should be using 1. And message input container. Okay, that's cool. And that is gonna have inside definitely a text box, which data name I'm gonna call also message input. and the value I don't have to specify. And for now, let's leave it here. And I also need a button, of course. So let's put a button, and the button goes like this, and it's going to be the send button. And I have to give a name to this button, send button. And then let's just use the same thing here. So the message input is going to be the message input. And this is going to be the send button. Send button. Cool. So there you go. That works. What if I do something like position absolute left, let's say 15 pixels, and bottom 10 pixels, or actually 15 as well. Oh, it goes to the bottom. That's just what I wanted. Cool. So the input, I'm gonna do something that I'm not proud of, but it's gonna be the input. I'm gonna put like a width of 400 pixels, I guess. That's a good value. Cool. For testing, this is gonna be it's gonna be, I always want to keep improving this. I'm never gonna be happy with what I currently have. Yeah, much better, I guess. Well, let's just leave it like this. And now let's start to implement the backend. So remember, this index file is being served by Sinatra, and it's just serving the file. So although this is an ERB file, there is no template here at all. So it could just be a static file. And next step I want to do is to make this send button work. So the send button is going to work. And for that, I'm going to do a post request. Post/send message. And then I'm going to put inside here binding pry. So I have to restart. So if I open another terminal and I'm going to use this HTTP. So if you don't know what it is, this is a program called this is the program. You can look it up. So it's called HTTP, which is a replacement for curl, and it's just much more easier to use. So this is gonna go to localhost port 4567 and choose send message, and then I'm gonna send the message. I'm gonna send. I think the payload should be like username, which is gonna be, let's say, Mark, and the message, the content or message content is gonna be, hi there, how are you? And then we can see that the server received the request and it stopped here. And if I type in params, it's not gonna be there because this came as the input. So request.body. This is going to be a string IO. So I read this and I have to save it, because if I reading it is a operation that's going to change its content. So the content is going to be this JSON string, which I didn't require the JSON library. So JSON.parse content, and there you go. So here I have my message. Cool. Although this works, I don't like to use the JSON gem that is built in with Ruby. I prefer to use OJ and multi-JSON. So I'm gonna put in here, I'm gonna move these, and require OJ and multi-JSON. And let me already write the code to get the payload. So the payload is going to be multi-json.load. So this is equivalent to JSON parse, or almost equivalent, and it's going to read the request body read, and then we can put up binding pry, and let's close the server run bundle and run the server and run that request again. So here is my payload. So same as before, but the advantage of using the multi-JSON gem is that multi-JSON, it's a gem that is not going to process JSON for you, but it's going to provide a common interface for other JSON processing gems. And I'm requiring OJ here, and it seems like I'm not using it, but in fact, for Ruby, OJ is at this current time is the fastest JSON parser gem that is out there. So it's very fast, and if multi-JSON detects that OJ is there, it's going to use it. So just the fact I'm requiring it here is already telling multi-JSON to use that thing. And using it directly without multi-JSON, I would have to configure some things. And I don't want to configure things. So I just use multi-JSON, which provides me with some nice standards, nice defaults. And yeah, I prefer to work with that. So send message. So now we have the username. So username is going to be the payload username, and the message content is going to be here. And the current time, I also want to require now the time and the date gems, which are always, they're not gems, they're like they come bundled with Ruby, but they're always useful. So I'm going to put time.now.utc, or just remove that UTC thing. And now next step is going to be to set up the database. So the database is going to be Redis, and you're going to see it's very, 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 very simple to do. So Redis is already installed and running, and that's so I'm just gonna do Redis CLI, and so Redis has this. It doesn't have. It has support for many databases inside the same server, but it doesn't give you database names. Instead, it gives you database numbers, which might be odd, but yeah. So I'm gonna use database 14 because the other numbers I'm using for different things, and I'm gonna type the command keys just to see if there's any keys from a different software being used here, but that's not the case. So it's empty, which is good. So now let's connect. Let's make a Redis connection. So Redis is new, and then the URL is gonna be Redis, and it's gonna be localhost. I'm gonna omit the port. It's gonna use the default one, which I think is, I don't remember it, 79. Well, anyway, and then slash the database number. So I'm gonna just set as an example here, foo with the value bar. So now if I list all the keys, I'm gonna see that my key foo is there and its value is bar. And now if I reset my application and issue that request again, I can now, and I forgot to, yeah, so I don't have the binding pry. Cool. So now Redis, I can issue commands just like I did here, and if I issue get foo, I'm probably get bar, yeah. And if I issue keys, actually is redis.keys. There you go. All my keys are foo. So let me keys, and then if I type in the del from delete, and I delete the key called foo, now foo is gone. Cool. So the database is empty again. And of course, the reason that Redis, the variable name, starts with a $sign is because it's a global variable. So that's just it. The only thing that the $sign does is it declares the variable as global. So of course, if you're programming anything that is really going to be out there, users are using it, you don't want to deal with global variables, but for the sake of this programming thing here, it's fine. So now I have to do kind of a model of my database, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do an L push every time there's a new message, and the L push is going to be a JSON, is going to have a JSON payload, and it's going to be dump, and it is going to dump all this content inside. So let me there you go, quick and easy. So what is L push? So L push, I have to put like here messages, and now you're gonna see that I have, let's take the keys, and whenever I send a message, and there was some problem there. Oh, I forgot to restart the server, I think. No, I didn't. That was weird. Anyway, if I now try to get the messages, of course I'm gonna get an error because the type of messages is a list. So every command, or almost every command in Redis that deals with list is going to start with an L, but there's also write push. So this L push and write push, and it's going to push. So what this is going to do is going to push a new element inside the list, and L push is going to push the element in the left of the list, and R push is going to push to the right of the list. So depending on how you see it, you could consider that left push is going to push to the beginning of the list, and R push is going to push to the end of the list. But that's just how that only matters if you're saying that the right is the end and the left is the beginning, because there's nothing really there saying that has to be the standard. It could be that the right would be the beginning and the left would be the end. But for now, let's just make the convention that the right is the end. So every new message is going to be appended to the end of the list. So let's use write push instead. And as you see in Redis, you don't have to declare variables. You don't have to declare things. You just start using it. So the command L range is going to list all the elements of a list. And the parameters are messages, and then the so I can pass in a range of elements that I want to take. So if I want to take the complete list, I'm going to take from element 0 and the end of the list, which is -1. And there you go. Here's my message. So I have the current time, I have the message content, and I have the username. And what is going to happen now is that, well, I'm going to need, of course, I'm going to need some code to read these messages from the database. But before that, I want to do some code that makes this send button here work. So let's go again to the JavaScript part. And the first thing is I want to take this send button, and I want to add an event listener, which is going to be on click, and it's going to actually I don't need that. So whenever I click the button, it is going to take the message from the message input. So I want to return false here. It's going to take from the message input. I actually don't remember the. So I'm gonna do some like window.xsx equals message input, because I don't remember how to return the value of this. So just type in something, and now I have this as a global variable, and I think it's value. Yeah, it's value. And if I want to clean the value, I just do this. And then I can later on do focus, which does not work because I'm using the element inspector right now. Cool, so let's remove this, and message content is going to be this. I also need the username. So my username is going to be username, and then the username input, and it's also going to be the value. So just to make some debugging, I'm going to say that sending message, and then, oh, miss an S. Oops. So sending message, and then the message content as user, then username. I probably want to put something default here and here because I don't want to keep typing every single time. So username is going to be value is going to be Mark, and what did I miss? Just for the username, the message is fine. So I'm gonna click send, and nothing's happening. Why? Because probably the event listener is not working. Click is that a thing? I think I should not do like this. I should do it like dot on click equals this, and then I have to remove this thing here. And if I refresh, there we go. So now it worked. Funny, right? So I'll send a message whatever as user Mark. So now it's taking the content correctly. If I click it again, there we go. So in order to send a message, I have to now, I'm going to use Ajax. But Ajax is the past. Yes, because nowadays people are using fetch. So fetch, I think, it's just the modern version of Ajax. And I think we should use 8 instead of using Ajax because it's so confusing. And I never remember how to use this. So, well, I want to know the parameters. Oh yeah, because I'm not on the, yes, there we go. So fetch, so this is going to be a fetch, and then slash send message. And what we need also is the payload. So cookies, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that at this point. But yeah, post data, that's exactly what I want. So await fetch URL, and then method is going to be post. So we definitely want the method to be post. And the mode, so this cache is, well, it's a post, so there's going to be no cache problems right there. Headers, I want to put this because I want the content type to be JSON. So redirect body. So body is what I want. So I want the body to look exactly what is coming over here. So username is going to be username, and actually username is going to be the username, and the message, what is it called? Message content is going to be the message content. And all this I have to put in stringify, which is a funny name. In Ruby it's called dump, which is also a funny name. And what else I want to do here is I want to make a then. So when this happens, I'm going to have a response, I think. I just want to trigger the debugger whenever it's finished. And let's see how that works. So I want to go to the network tab because I want to see the network activity happening. And I also want to open the console. So to open the console, just press ask on my keyboard. Press ask in the keyboard, or on the keyboard to open the console. It's actually not to open, but rather to toggle it. So there you go. I'm now stuck on the debugger, which is good. And it's funny because it's not telling me where I am. Oh yeah, there we go. So response status is true. Why true? That's funny. But I can see that it actually worked because I can now go into the database and I can see press ask on the keyboard to toggle the console. And since this is on the first position and the one that I sent before is on the second position, tells me that I forgot to restart the server, because on the server I changed these L push to R push. So if I now restart it, I should in fact do something else here. So I should status channel 4. I think that's it. So that's just gonna tell, like, it's just gonna return no body, just gonna return a response without any body, without a body in the response, not without anybody. And yeah, so let me refresh this, remove this from here, and just another message. So I click send, there you go, the response, and now the status should be channel 4, and it's gonna have no body. Well, it reads a readable stream, but I know that the response has no body. So what I want to do here on my front end is also checking whether the response, so if response.status is channel 4, then it's okay. However, if it is different, then I want to make like alert, panic, something, message could not be sent. And also I want to send this catch and make an alert. Request failed. So when is the request gonna fail? It's gonna fail if I go to network and put here as offline, and then I click the message and panic, request failed. So you see that the fetch entered the catch condition. So let's go back online. Losing my voice. And now actually if I go to the database again, which is here, and I type in the same thing, I'm gonna see that the last message that I sent is this one. So this was the what did I do? Come on. So this was the first message. This was the second one, which was supposed to be after this one, but then I changed that L push to R push, and now it's pushing to the right or to the bottom of this list. So this is the latest message. And now what I'm wondering right now is how am I going to do to fetch these messages? And I think there are quite some ways to do it. I'm going to go with the most simple one first. And it's going to be very naive. It's not going to be, performance-wise, it's going to be really shitty. But it's going to work. So let's go with that. I just have to make a little pause here in the video and I come back in a snap. Next step is going to be now to read the messages that are going to the server, right? And yeah, let's go. So as I said, there are simple ways of doing that, and there are more complex ways, more sophisticated methods. I'm gonna go with the simple one, and let's go. So I'm gonna call it get, and it's gonna go, I'm gonna call it poll messages, or poll message. I don't know. Which makes me think I want to actually go and add a little bit more of complexity to my Redis server. I want to do kind of a polling thing. So the idea is that there's going to be a timer running on the front end, and every so many seconds, like every 1 second or so, it is going to ask the server whether there's something. So it's going to ask the server, is there something for me? Is there a new message or something? And the server is going to say, yeah, there is a new message, or no, there is no new message. However, the server has to know, there's got to be a way for the server to know there's a new message since when, because otherwise there are always new messages, you know. So there's got to be a way to identify this kind of period of time. So the last time I saw new messages was at this point of time, and then somebody sent more messages and more messages, and now I have to ask, well, from this point of time, are there more messages? And then the server is gonna say, yeah, there are, and these here are the new messages. And then the next time that the front end asks the backend, it is gonna ask from already this last point of time, and it's gonna ask, are there new messages since this point of time? And then the server is gonna answer, yes, there are, or no, they're not. And one way we could do this is based on the current time. So I'm gonna actually go and do it based on the current time. It's not a very good idea because of several reasons. Using time is usually not a good idea, but let's just do it for the sake of simplicity, and let's add a little bit more complexity later on. So yeah, poll messages is going to receive one parameter, and is it going to come by, well, let's just do it like this, and let's actually make a post request, because a post request is not going to suffer by caching issues. Actually, no, let's make a GET request, because with the fetch method, we can easily send some no caching. So we can easily deal with the caching mechanism and say, please don't cache this content. So there's not going to be any body. Anybody is funny. There's not going to be a body to this GET request. Let's just add a binding pry. And in the front end, let's, I'm gonna put a little button here, I think, or I'm gonna just make a global function. I wanna have a way to test this without a timer constantly calling the function to pull new messages. So I'm just gonna declare a function here. So function check new messages. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna do a fetch request to poll messages, and I don't know how one passes parameters to this thing. Credentials, method body. I don't want to pass a body. I want to pass like a. Oh. Yeah, I just realized I don't have to pass like a parameter like that. I can come here and say I'm gonna call it cursor, because that's the common name for this concept. So it's gonna be called cursor. Actually, that's where the server is. So, and then the cursor is gonna be here. So whatever, and here's gonna be the time. So I have to make this a. Oh, I'm pressing weird stuff here. So I want to do like this. Method is going to be get, which I think is the default. And I saw some caching things. Headers. I'm gonna put in accept. It's gonna be application/JSON. And other than that, I wanted the caching thing. Cache, no cache. So cache, no cache. This is well, this is important. I don't know how Chrome or whatever browser is gonna behave if I don't pass this parameter. And for development, I don't want any caching happening. So I'm just gonna say I don't want any caching happening. So next is gonna be a then, and then the response is gonna be here, and I'm gonna put a debugger, and that's it. Well, if I don't catch, it's gonna raise an error in the console, so I'm gonna see it. So that's fine. I have to pass in a cursor, and for the sake of this example, let's just see all the messages that we have here. And well, message 1 through 3, and the problem here is that the dates are they're not good here. So I'm gonna pass a date. This is 540. So I'm gonna pass this one. Like I'm gonna pass this date over here. It's a little bit lame that it is in this way. So I don't know what JavaScript gives to us in terms of date API. Is this something valid? Yes. So can I easily convert this to a number, to integer? No. To number? No. I want the Unix time. I want to pass only a number. So how do I do that? It's gonna be a date, and D has, so I'm gonna write mdn date, and I have to check out what are the methods. So get UTC, get time, get seconds. I think get seconds. Like is it, oh no, it's gonna be just seconds of the date. I know that Unix time, which is seconds since 1st January 1970, because that's kind of the standard thing. And I'm pretty sure there's some way to do that. To ISO string, to year, milliseconds, full year. Wow, I cannot believe that there is no method for that. Get full year. Well, let's see, JavaScript date Unix time, timestamp. How to get the current timestamp in JavaScript? So date now, get time, value off. Is that true? Value off. No, this doesn't help. Get time, F4, date now. There, this is the other way around. Get Unix timestamp with JavaScript. That's exactly what I want. Cookies. Yeah, fine. Oh, it's new date. So it's new date. And then the get time. That's it. Well, that probably is including milliseconds. If I open on RB and I minus R, so I require the time and date thing is, it's gonna be, yeah, well, way in the future. Cool, so it's just a matter of doing I'm gonna my latest cursor is gonna be this is gonna be I don't know, is it gonna be what? Well, let's just put it like this, and then get time, and then I want seconds and not milliseconds. So latest cursor, and let's see what happens. So the name of my function is check new messages. I think, yes, that's cool. So I'm gonna call it here. And it has called my server over here. And now I probably can see in the params cursor the value of that date. So if I convert this to integer and do time at, I'm gonna have that date that I passed in. So cool, that's good. So I'm gonna do it like time cursor is gonna be this, and what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go through the whole database. I'm gonna go through all messages and compare my cursor. So I'm gonna go to redis.l range messages 0 - 1, and I'm gonna do select messages, and message. I'm gonna have to load a lot of JSON stuff every single time. So if message, if the message current time, which is gonna be also, I have to do time.parse. So this is not good in terms of performance, because I have to first go through every single message, and then every time I have to go through every message and parse it as a JSON, because Redis does not store JSON stuff, it only stores strings. And then the JSON thing doesn't have a date, a way to represent dates, so it has to be stored in a string or something. So I have to do time parse, and that's the message timestamp. And if, now I'm gonna do if this message timestamp is in the future compared to my cursor, then I'm gonna, well, I wanna say in the future, not in the present. So this is future and present, and this is future. So if comparing to my cursor, it's in the future. So if the timestamp of the message is far away in the future than the cursor, I'm gonna return, well, I'm actually gonna return this. So this is a Boolean statement, and since this is a select, what it means is that it's gonna reduce this array to, it's gonna filter, and it's gonna only include the elements where this condition returns true. So now here is going to be all the messages, and now what I have to do, we have to serialize these messages. So serialize these messages. How are we going to do that? We're gonna, well, first let's, so let's just call multi json.dump messages. So I want to test this. I want to test this on my front end. So I'm going to reload and check new messages. And there we go. So the response dot status, and now body, and body this kind of bureaucratic stuff. So I have to get a reader, readable stream default reader. So this is kind of complicated, but I think so window.xx is going to be equal x, which is whatever is coming there. Body get reader, fail to execute. Okay, so it's a little bit more complex than that. So data response, can I just do it like that? So response that dot JSON, and it's gonna be body stream is locked. So I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and implement this right here. So then, no, this is the wrong function. So then, and then response.json dot then, and then I hope to have some content in here. So let's just refresh this, call this function again, and there you go. But this is yeah, so we returned an array with one element, which is correct. And if I change this message, actually this cursor, so this cursor, this date is of exactly one of the messages. So if I go back 1 second, then because of this comparison doesn't include this, it's only going to return one message. So I went back now 1 second here, and whenever I call it again, that's going to include 2 messages. Now the problem is that these things are coming as strings, and I don't want that for sure. I want to so this is gonna be, I have 2 ways of doing this. I can, so the problem is that each element inside this messages thing is actually a string. So I can either parse, well, let me do it differently. Let me actually do it like messages equals this, and then map, and then message msg string, and then do it like this. So now all the messages here are gonna be, so messages equals messages dot select, and now the message here is already, it is already a JSON thing. So when I dump here, it's gonna dump the correct thing. So I'm gonna go back and call that function again, but I have to reload my server. There you go. Now we have both messages here. And what are we going to do with these messages is that we are going to add some elements here. So I'm gonna, well, let's do it. Let's come here and go through. Where is it? Here. So in content here we have the messages. So I'm gonna make a function like process messages response, and then pass the content inside, and then I'm gonna make this a function, and here are gonna be the messages, and I'm gonna go to each message. So in, is it in? Yeah, or it can be of, I think. Yeah, because it's an array. So I'm gonna go through each message, and what else I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let's just create insert message in screen. Screen is a little bit weird, but let's just go with it. And what this is actually gonna do is that it is gonna create oh, come on, some message. So what this is what this is gonna do is that it's gonna create the element. So it's gonna create this. So since you're not using any framework like React, like Vue or whatever, this means we are gonna have to do this by hand. We could use like some templating engine, but let's do it like bare hands. It's gonna be kind of pain in the ass. So I think the first thing is that create document dot create element, and I think I can I pass a class in here? No, that doesn't work. So div dot class list dot now we have a div with a foo class. That's quite some work just to create a div, but yeah, let's go with it. So wrapper div is going to be document dot create element. So, and remember, we're not using even jQuery here, so it's pure JavaScript, pure browser JavaScript. So creating a div, and then I'm gonna do class list.add, and it's gonna have this class. And the next thing is to create these two divs inside. So well, it's not gonna be very difficult. I'm just gonna copy paste and change it to username div, and then just copy paste again and copy paste again and change it to message div or message text div, and then it's gonna contain these class. So now what next step is adding one inside the other. So I think to insert elements is kind of like document.body.append child or just append. No, it's append child. So append child, and the first child is going to be the username, and the second one, so we are putting this element inside this, and since it is appending, it is putting in the end, and this one here. And cool, now we have the structure. However, we don't have the contents here, so we also have to put the, in order to put the content, it's going to be username div dot and here I think it's called inner text. Could be inner HTML, but then it would be HTML. So username div inner text is gonna be the message dot, and it's gonna be the username because it's gonna be exactly like this. And then the message is gonna be the message content. There you go. So and also then the last step is to go ahead and put it inside the chat container. So chat container dot append, and then put the wrapper div inside. So this in either Vue or React or whatever would be like plain HTML, would be very readable stuff, but yeah, we are not there yet. So check new messages. We can now reload this, and if we check for new messages, there you go. You see the two messages that were returned are now included here. So press ask on the keyboard to toggle the console, just another message. Cool. So the idea is that now this function is going to be called in a loop over and over and over and over again, so until the end of time. So let's go ahead and add that, and we're going to see that there's a problem, but let's do it anyway. So I want to first thing, I want to go ahead and change this to this. Cool. I think this way, is it public here? No, it's not public. Cool. So I'm gonna do set timeout. I'm gonna call check new messages. I'm gonna actually put it here and do a console log checking new messages, and then check new messages, and let's put once every second. And there was I'm missing something. Yeah, I miss a semicolon here, and I miss an arrow here. So reload it, and we can already see the message popping up. Actually, set timeout is not the correct one because it's gonna only be fired once. So we want to set interval, which is going to be called over and over again. And there you go, and you probably can see the problem, right? And if I type in, so let's clean this and new message. Well, now all 3 messages are coming in. Well, before we fix this, let's just remove these 2 fake messages that we have here. So let's just remove this and keep an empty div. Cool. So there you go. Messages are being added over and over again. And what would be funny? Well, nothing is funny in this situation. What we actually missed here is that we have this cursor and we have to update this cursor. So what we're going to do is, so we have the cursor and we have insert message in screen, and next thing we're doing is message dot, and we're going to take the current time, which is our cursor, and we have to process this date. So let message time equals, so this is the message time, and let's actually take the time and divide by 1000. And now we are gonna say if message time is larger than the latest cursor, we are gonna set the latest cursor as the message time. And this one we can now make it 0 and refresh the page, and there you go. So the loop is still working because you can see here in the logs that it's logging, checking for new messages, and it's just increasing because of this little option here. Anyway, so it's checking, it's there checking every time. And what if I send a new message? Well, it came right away. And now if I open a incognito screen and I say like Jane, hello Mark, how are you? There you go. Now we have a chat application working. So this is the very basic, of course. Well, we could make a little improvement here, which is once we hit send, we clean this field. And if you press enter here, nothing happens. So we could also make that interaction happen. Of course, there are a lot of things. I mean, I could just be Jane and then impersonate myself as Mark and it would just work. Or maybe as, I don't know, Josh. Hey, I'm totally Josh and not Jane at all. Look at that. And also, this does not have to be a incognito screen. I could just go ahead and put my name here as, I don't know, Dana. Is this a name? Hi, I'm Dana. Is this a name? And then you can see it's coming everywhere. And once I refresh, it's gonna take 1 second to run that first get interval. And I could also change that in order to check new messages just right away. So whenever I refresh, I have the messages right there. And yeah, so it's working. If I go to my backend, so this is inside Redis, all messages, they are here. And as you can see, the last message is here, and there you go. So on and so forth. So if I want to take like from message 7, So you see here you have like the index of each element in this list. So if I go to 8, and if I type in one message here, now I'm gonna have this last message, and it's gonna be everywhere. So this is the basic, very basic, totally basic totally basic chat application. I'm gonna upload this code to GitHub, so you folks can check it out, make changes to it if you want. Of course, it's very simple. I didn't teach how to install Redis, but that's fairly easy on either Mac or Linux. I just go to Redis installation on Google, and you find out how to do that. It's a very simple database. It's very different from MySQL, Postgres, which requires quite some configuration to get started. So yeah, I'm gonna upload that code and you can check it out. So that's it for today. Let's see if I can do it better next time, if I can improve on this. Some things I'm thinking about is authentication, so that one user cannot impersonate any other one. We could think about improving the interface a little bit. At some point, this code and this CSS is gonna get a little bit more complicated, and then I'd like to change it to some framework like Vue or React. I'm more familiar with Vue.js than React, but any of them would work. And putting probably Webpack or something like that on the pipeline. And then there would be like further optimization that could be done. For instance, there could be some problems using these, where was it? Those date things. Now I'm trying to imagine, what if two messages arrive at the exact same date? And since the date that we have, or rather the timestamp, since it is its precision is only to a second, it could be that two messages arrive at the same second. Could totally be the case. What would happen then? I don't know. Could think of more features. For instance, this is just one group chat. What about making different groups? So I don't know, a group for people who like rock and roll, people who hate rock and roll. Or it could make chat from one person to another. Could put pictures. Well, the amount of ideas is just never ending. I'm gonna put this first version on GitHub, and whoever wants to do something with it, but I'm probably gonna change it next time. So see you guys and girls later.